I'm one of the co-chairs of the publications promotions with Nicole Salter-Brown, who will host the interview portion tonight. We would like to welcome you to the November 28th, 2023 SCBWI Wisconsin Kid Lit Book Buzz, where Wisconsin creators share their insights on craft, creative processes, and their book's journey to publication. Attendees in the live session have Ask Me Anything opportunities with the guests. The Wisconsin Kid Lit Book Buzz interviews are broadcast on Zoom on the last Tuesday of most months from 7 to 8 Central Time. We invite you to spread the book buzz on social media through positive reviews on Goodreads, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and on your blogs. Please ask your school and public librarians to add Wisconsin creators' books to their collections, too. We're super glad you're here tonight, but let's also get together at the Work in Progress Marvelous Midwest Conference in Iowa, coming up in April. Get ready, get set, go. Mark your calendars, because early bird registration is January 12th through February 29th, and the price goes up after that. Please join in welcoming and giving a warm welcome to our featured guests for tonight's Kid Lit Book Buzz. We'll speak with picture book authors Linda Teed, Jean Huxtable-Hammerskey, Jack Hammerskey, picture book illustrator Terry Einer, and poet Rochelle Melander. There are two Wisconsin writers who contributed to the poetry anthology, What is Hope? Now, we also have Sandy Braille in the audience, who also has a poem in What is Hope, published by Pomelo Books. How can we help children feel more confident? With poetry. Give children a daily dose of hope simply by sharing the 40 ekphrastic poems in this book. Inspired by a wide variety of diverse and inclusive Black and white photos, these poems explore the many places where hope pops up in our lives. When we play a sport, water a garden, do volunteer work, visit a hospital, or even when we take a test. We're excited to hear the latest buzz from the writing team of Parker's Pumpkins, published by Orange Hat Publishing in Waukesha, Wisconsin. Congratulations to Jean Huxtable-Hammerskey and Jack Hammerskey. Parker and Grandma plant a big seed they found in an old trunk up in the attic. When cold weather comes, they bring the vine indoors. Their decision leads to humorous outcomes and a community event. It is a well-known fact that artwork and text work together to tell the story in picture books. Wisconsin illustrator Terry Einer is here tonight to buzz about her artwork in 2 of her 13 works. The Yak Sisters, Thelma and Louise Saved the Day, plus The Day Sammy Found Socks. And please join us in a future Book Buzz episode to hear her latest, The Christmas Tree. Linda Teed, author of 3 self-published picture books at Tootsie and Teed, is on a roll with 2 books released on the same day. Just in time for the holidays comes the adorable character Annabelle Glinton. With her sparkly boots, trusty walker, and best friend Samantha, Annabelle sets out to uncover the truth about the school bully at their Christmas party. In the spirit of Christmas, she discovers that sometimes understanding is the best gift of all. And a bonus book, Stella and the 3 Crayon Challenge. When Stella walked into her art class and was greeted by her favorite teacher, Mrs. Casper, she never could have predicted that today's assignment would be her greatest challenge yet. Is it possible that Stella can use her disappointment to create her most treasured piece of artwork? Please like and subscribe to our newly created Book Buzz Wisconsin YouTube channel. Enter your questions in the chat for our guests in the Ask Me Anything portion of tonight's Book Buzz. And now, let's hear from tonight's Wisconsin writers.
All right. So I think first we're going to start just introducing ourselves. Linda, would you like to go first? Just briefly introduce yourself and tell a little bit about your book. Oh, you're muted.
Hi.
You're muted, Linda. There you go.
Am I here?
Yes.
Did you hear? Oh, sorry. That took like half a minute. Sorry. Hi, I'm Linda Teed. I am a self-published author. And in 2 short whirlwind years, I have managed to create 5 picture books. I guess, yeah, 5. I have a lot to say, I guess. I'm from a small little township in Wisconsin, in Hebron, Wisconsin, about 5 minutes away from Fort Atkinson. I'm a former 3rd grade teacher and a former youth librarian. And I am now helping my husband who's battling cancer. And in doing that, I thought I have to do something that's positive and good and right to honor not only him, but circumstances. And so here we are with all of these books. And so what a pleasure and an honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Jean? You're also muted.
So sorry.
You're muted. There you
go. Jean Huxtable-Hammersky, and I'm a retired speech and language pathologist, worked with lots and lots of preschoolers during my years. And this story came about with a real life experience I had with my grandson, Parker. And then in talking with my son, who's Parker's dad, Parker and my son and we took the story into some more imaginative things, and that's the way it went. And this is my first picture book. I published back in the 90s 3 resource books for how to teach vocabulary and humor and figurative language. So, but this is my first time with a picture book.
Thank you. Terry?
Hi, I'm Terry Einer, and I'm a fine artist as well as a picture book illustrator. And I've illustrated 14 books to date. A couple of them aren't published yet. I'm waiting for the authors to finish up on those. And I live in Alaska, Wisconsin, so I'm on the west coast of Wisconsin, right along the Mississippi River. And the books I'm talking about tonight are, the first book is about a little dog named Sammy, and it's mostly about overcoming past fears and finding joy. And the second book is about the second book about the Yak sisters is about courage during crisis and helping others.
Thank you. And Rochelle?
Hi, everybody. My name is Rochelle Melander. I'm the author of 11 books for kids and Mightier Than the Sword, or 11 books for adults and Mightier Than the Sword, which is my debut book for kids. And I have a poem in What is Hope, collected by Sylvia Vardell and Janet Wong. Nice to see you all.
Linda, what pitch did you use to grab the attention of the publisher?
There we go. I grabbed the attention of a self-publisher which was quite interesting when she appeared one day in the library when I was still working at the library. And she came in and asked our youth director, Minetta Lippard, if she would like to purchase 2 of her books that she had just published. And of course, my ears opened wide and my eyes did too. And in further investigation, in one of her books in the back, it said it had her contact information. So I boldly contacted her to just ask how she started self-publishing. And through our conversation, she asked if I had a book. And I said, I don't know, do I have a book? And I sent her what I had been writing. And she made the first book happen, and she published it through her publishing company. And then the second book came and she published that, and then she kicked me to the curb and said, you can do this all by yourself. And so I've done 3 by myself. So yeah, great. She's great, Kristen.
Jean, did you have to pitch your book, or?
You know, I started off by looking for publishers, traditional publishers, and it's hard to tell, you know, because you can submit your story to many publishers who are not interested in it for various reasons, and then all of a sudden there's one who just really loves it. So it would be hard for me to pinpoint what exactly Orange Hat Publishing thought, you know, what hooked them into it. And they're a hybrid publisher, so they did certain amounts and I had to do certain amounts, and it's been quite the journey for me.
Terry, how did you get hooked up with the authors for your books?
My very first book, the gal was actually working with Orange Hat Publishing, who I'm sure you guys are familiar with. And she wasn't crazy about the illustrators they had available. And so she just went and Googled Wisconsin artists and found my information. And so she contacted me, and I had several people saying, you know, I should do picture books. And I'm like, well, sure. But, you know, how do you have someone, you know, contact you? And so here she, out of the blue, she contacted me. And once I did that book, then I contacted Orange Hat Publishing and I said, now if you'd like me to do more, I'm available. And so I did 2 more with them. And since then I have joined several Facebook groups. There's a ton of them out there. Authors and illustrators are kind of the theme. And they pretty much the rest of my authors have found me on these Facebook groups. So that's kind of how I've got going.
Thanks. And Rochelle, how did your book come about? Yours and Joyce's and Sandy's.
So we've taken several classes with Camelo Books with Sylvia and Janet. So they offer classes, poetry classes 101 through 401. And this was a 401 class where we took the class, learned more about poetry, and then we all had the opportunity to write poems on a variety of pictures and topics. And so we wrote the poems, and then they chose the ones that they thought would be in the books. And then alumni get a chance to also write poetry on some of the topics.
Okay, great. Linda, what are your writing habits, good or bad?
Well, I'm asked a lot what I write with, and one would think that it would be paper and pencil because I'm a former teacher, but I do best on my Google Docs on my phone. And so that's kind of my go-to. And it's interesting. Kate DiCamillo, once upon a long time ago when I saw her, said that she carries a notebook around just for ideas. So Terry, there's something for you. You know, you said about having an idea.
Yeah.
Kate says just people watch and carry a notebook all the time. Phrases and things people say, just kind of, you know, maybe spark an idea or some interest. So, but yes, I'm surprised that I use my phone as much as I do. Sometimes I'll jot something down in a notebook, but most of the time it's on my phone because it's easy access. So.
Okay. Jean, what are your writing habits?
Oops, muted.
This is my first book, and I spent a lot of time in front of the computer writing and rewriting a document. I don't write every day. I have another story in mind. I've written it up. I'm just beginning on it. And again, to take off from what Linda was saying was several of my ideas for stories are based on what my grandchildren say or do, because they say the most incredible things, and they show their interests and their passions at such a young age, and they're so authentic and transparent in everything they do. So I really look for that, and they are a wealth of ideas just watching children.
Thank you. And Terry, how do you do your illustrations? Are you doing it like a computer aided thing? Is it?
I have done, the first few books I did were just traditional painting. I didn't know how to do digital at that time. So my husband happens to be a photographer on the side. So I painted the illustrations and he captured them on his camera, and then we went in and edited with, at the time, Lightroom. I have since learned how to do my digital illustrations, which I prefer that. I love to do I love the look of the traditional illustrations, but with the digital, it's so much easier when the author wants to change something or move something or expand it or shrink it. You know, I can just go in and digitally manipulate it. And so that has been such a change for me to do digital illustrations. And so I do those with Adobe Photoshop. So I also have learned now how to traditionally do my art and then put it into Photoshop and play around with it that way. So.
And Rochelle, do you have any writing habits you'd like to share?
Yeah, I'm a pretty regular writer. So I've got several picture books in the works and a novel. And then I write nonfiction for my business as a writing coach. So I try to write for a couple of hours every morning. I just find that kind of butt in the chair writing habit thing works really well. And then I have usually like a writing day, one day a week, often Saturday, where I just read picture books and play with ideas and do kind of fun things. The other thing I try to do is get out and go to museums. I'm also a teaching artist, so I'm teaching in the schools, and that helps to kind of generate new ideas.
Awesome. You're really disciplined. I am not. Linda, can you share a craft technique that you used in one of your books? Linda, we can't hear you.
You guys, I apologize. Linda, I think that feedback might be coming from you, and I just messaged you privately, so I muted you to figure out who the feedback is coming from. I apologize.
You're fine, because I thought I left it on and I thought, just be real quiet, Linda. Just stay still. Okay. You know, I think I might have been sharing with Kathy Groth one day when we were having coffee that or maybe it was Kristen. One of my things that I do is I have a whole Google Doc on story titles. I don't have anything written, but I just have things that just like spark my interest. For example, what's in the bag, Lucille? There's my great aunt Lucille always came to our house with a bag, and I thought, what a great story that would be. So I haven't really developed the story, but I have the title. I probably have probably 15 titles for stories that I'm just thinking about. And some of them came from like songs that you hear, like lyrics, like Wallowing in the Mire is one of them. And I think that's from like a 1970s something song. I can't even think of the group, but I just find it interesting. And I think, what could you write about that? So I'm not sure that's really a craft, but it's something that I do when I see something, it becomes a title. And I think I could write about that. So I know it's kind of weird. But
No, it's awesome. Jean, do you have any craft techniques that you'd like to share? You're muted.
There. A couple of things I used in this first book that I thought worked really well is at one point in the story, the reader thinks the story has ended, but then you turn the page and it continues to the very end, and the very last page, there is no text on it. So it leaves it up to the reader to kind of end the story, to try to decide, oh, now what are they going to do? You know, well, maybe they'll do this next. Well, maybe they'll do that next. So it kind of gives the reader that ability to come up with maybe their own ending or where this story is going to go next. So I like that in this first book that I wrote.
Clever. Thank you. Terry, have you written any picture books? Are you interested in writing them in the future?
I have not written any. Like Linda, I have 4 or 5 titles or ideas. I've just stuck them in color note on my phone. And like Jean, they've come from my grandchildren, but I haven't been able to develop a story yet. And so, the ideas are just kind of kicking around. I'd love to write one, but I haven't yet.
Rochelle, do you use any specific craft techniques when you're writing?
I like to play with form. I think form is really fun. And so my book and my poem and What is Hope is an ode. So I like to look at other forms and just see, could I borrow this for a poem? So I've been working with the kids and taking the kind of categories for biology, kingdom and so forth, and using those to write poems about themselves, just as a way to play around with that. And I didn't come up with that. Yoko Ono did that first. So I love to do stuff like that. That's really fun for me.
How can you tell that an idea is unique enough or good enough for a book, Linda?
Being a former teacher, I've been privileged to teach for a lot of years to some beautiful third graders, and I think they've taught me far more than I ever taught them. But one of the things that I always wanted to do was to have a book that had meaning based on problems that were being brought to my classroom. So for example, the bully situation, which is really tough, and everybody seems to have a story about a bully, that kind of thing. I'm always trying to figure out, can I write a book based on a solution to a problem that was brought to me? And so I try hard to have all of my books that have some meaning. And at the end of it, I always have, because I'm the teacher, questions to ponder, just some, not really right or wrong, but just discussion questions about how do you feel about this, or what did you learn, and those kinds of things. So my books hopefully have good meaning and some lessons to be learned. Thank you.
Jean, how can you tell?
I like Linda. There's certain things that I would like to promote in my stories, and in this book, the whole idea of a grandson, a 9-year-old, and a grandmother working together on a project and having fun and enjoying each other. cooperating, making decisions, and the grandson taking a role, the grandmother letting him make some of the decisions rather than the grandmother always telling him what to do. And also promoting curiosity about the world and how things grow, and how you can use what you grow, some creative problem solving. All those things I like to include in a story that promote that, just that cognitive and emotional development of kids, but also in that sense of working with a grandparent, and then solving your problem by involving the community in a community celebration. I think that's real important in these days that we live in.
Absolutely. Thank you. And Rochelle, how do you know when you have a gem?
Oh, sometimes I'm like totally fooling myself and it's not a gem. So that's a really hard question. I think, I mean, as everybody is saying, it's the hooks, you know, do I have enough hooks that are not just adult friendly? Because we all come up with great adult friendly hooks, you know, our parent ideas or our teacher ideas, but hooks that are kid friendly and that kids are really fascinated about. That's when I know it's a great idea, when the kids are interested.
Carrie, what's your process when you get a story to illustrate? Like, where do you start?
I asked them to send me the manuscript. I do have many authors that are nervous to do that. They, you know, they're afraid, they don't know who I am, and they are afraid that their story is going to be stolen. So I'm very happy to sign a non-disclosure. It makes them more comfortable. And so I asked for the manuscript, and then some of the authors have it paginated already, but many of them don't. So I'll go through and read the story and kind of see what I see as a scene. And that helps me break it down to a storyboard. And then we kind of see how many pages it ends up being. And so I just go through and I visualize each like paragraph, or sometimes a paragraph might have 3 different illustrations that it needs, or so it's just a process of what I see in my head when I read the story.
Thank you. Linda, what is the highlight of your writing career so far?
There've been so many good highlights. This is just been, it's truly a dream come true. I mean, if somebody would have told me 2 years ago that this is what you're going to be doing, this is your new passion, I would have said you were kind of crazy, because my plate was pretty filled. And I was pretty sad. I mean, again, my husband was just diagnosed with cancer. How in the world can you start writing children's books? But I really think it saved me in so many ways, because it filled those lonely hours, and it made sense. And my husband appears in every one of the books in some way, shape, or form, which just always makes me super happy. So that, I guess that's the highlight, is I find little ways to squeeze him in there without saying, oh, this is my husband, or I want you to know this or learn this. I'm trying to be really subtle, but it's cute and it's fun, and I'm grateful.
I love that. Awesome. Jean, what's been your highlight so far?
I think the biggest highlight for me was working with the illustrator, because I had, as I wrote this, I had in my mind, and I'm no artist, I'm not an illustrator at all, but I had in my mind, I knew what I wanted for different pages. And she and I went back and forth, and she did some sketches, and most of them were amazing as she brought it to life, the story. And she was really open to me saying, no, in this page, I want Parker to be doing this because I want him to be like a team member rather than watching grandma. I want him to be working with grandma. And she was able to take those ideas and just switch stuff around, and it just came out it came out perfect, and she had some really creative ideas. She says, how about on this page, if we put it this way in the corner, or this way, we'll cut it in half and do this. And she just, I don't know, it was just amazing. Very, very positive experience. I loved working with her.
Terry, how about you? Do you have a highlight?
Oh, the only thing I can think of that comes to mind, well, a couple things. First of all, just like Linda, just like illustrating a book is something, you know, like I said, everybody said your art would be perfect for picture books, and I just had no idea how to even get started. So to just have that first book in your hands and say, I did this, it's just, it's thrilling. And so that's definitely a highlight. I still get excited every time I get one in my hands, and you know, you're like, look what I did, you know. But I also worked on a book about grief, and that was really hard for me to wrap my head around, because I'm such a whimsical, colorful artist, and I couldn't quite get why this author wanted me to do her book. I just thought it's such a deep subject, and so we discussed it, and I said, well, you know, I said, why don't we do this with a critter of some sort instead of a human? And she loved that idea. And so we created 2 books about grief. And I think why it's a highlight for me is because it was so well received. You know, for such a sad subject, it's been a really positive thing when people read it, that, you know, the children can understand it, and it kind of lets them get their feelings out. So now those 2 books are kind of a highlight for me.
Rochelle, do you have a highlight?
Yeah, so I mean, I think first of all, writing Mightier Than the Sword. I wrote it during the pandemic in 6 months, and it just was so much research and so fascinating to learn about all these people and tell their stories. And now in my writing residency at a school, I'm getting a chance to go back to the book and tell the stories to the kids and introduce these people to K-5 through 8th graders. And so that's been really fun to have them actually, like, real live young people actually interested in Langston Hughes and Ada Lovelace and all these people. So that's been really fun.
Does anyone have anything that they want to add that we didn't ask? We're going to hit the lightning round in a few minutes, but anything that we didn't touch on that you want to mention? No? Joyce, we have time. Do you want to read your poem, since we didn't pick your brain?
I'd actually like to share that Wild has just come out. I love What is Hope? And my poem I read to my grandkids at Thanksgiving, because it's all about breaking the wishbone. So I'll read that to you. It's called Snap. I submitted 6 poems to Janet and Sylvia, and they chose Snap. So 1 unlucky turkey, 2 lucky pullers, 3 minutes to decide. Ready, set, not yet. Let me think. A wish for no homework, no onions, no peas, and no early bedtimes. Shh, wishes can't be unknown. Anyway, I have dreams of my own. Ready, set, now, snap. It's a perfect clean break. So, you know, when the wishbone breaks and you get both people get their wishes. So my wish came true with poetry in What is Hope?
Do you prefer writing poetry over picture books?
You know, I think picture books are poetry. They're very poetic, lyrical pieces of art. And I think writing poetry and learning from Janet and Sylvia and Rochelle and Sandy and my critique partners, I know my writing has improved because I've focused on poetry, because I'm learning to focus on poetry. Nowhere close to being done. But I did see the artwork for my picture book that I sold yesterday. So for the cover of Stuck, that will come out in 24.
Awesome.
Congratulations,
Yeah.
Joyce.
Thank
That is awesome. We are
Yes.
so excited. Please give us the pitch for the book. Tell us the pitch
tell you
or
the
what the
pitch.
book's about.
Okay. I'm not going to blow the pitch. I'll just tell you a little tiny bit about the book. It's about the La Brea tar pits and the animals that got mired in the asphalt 50,000 years ago. And if you've ever been to LA and gone to the La Brea tar pits, you'll see millions of fossils. So the book is about that. But it's, if you want to have a log line, it's nobody gets stuck. There's always some way out.
I like it. That's awesome. That's
Thank you.
awesome.
All right.
And you're getting that. And who's publishing that again?
That's book
Bushel and Peck.
and then distributed to Baker and Taylor.
Bushel and Peck. They're a wonderful small boutique press.
Yes. Patience is a virtue. That's
is.
what I'm learning.
All right. I think we have a few questions from our participants here. The first one is Terry. I'm curious about how you manage the gutter. I don't even think I know what that means.
The gutter is when you open, the book, and you've got that seam.
Ah.
Basically, whenever I do an illustration, I have a border around, because you have the bleed and you have so I have to take into account extra for the gutter so that my illustrations don't fall in that gutter.
Ted would like to ask the illustrators, is there a limit on how many times a drawing can be redrawn or edited?
So that's me again.
Yeah, that's you.
Okay. I do it according to my contract, and I'm assuming most illustrators would do that. It's really important to go over the rough drafts, go over it, discuss it, because that's your time to make changes and get it all nailed down, because once the art process starts, it's harder to change things. So really important to look at the rough drafts. And so I tell my authors, that they're allowed, I think it's 1 or 2 changes after we do the final illustration. If they are making, if say they want somebody to change their eyes from blue to brown or something, I don't charge for that. But if it's a complete change, we're completely changing the layout of that illustration, I do have to tell them that I'm sorry, but that's going to take me extra time, and this is going to be extra. And so do you really want to do that? So I allow a couple, again, it's not set in stone. It's, you got to be flexible and work with each other and collaborate. So I always discuss it, and if it's something that I feel is easy to do, I just do it. So
let's see. Terry, when you are doing a self-published book for an author, how much input do you get from the author?
It depends on the author. I have done books where they've given me the story and I just run with it. They didn't have any input. They were happy with what I came up with, and off it went. And then I have authors who have very specific things they want in their books, up to, like the one gal, it was her grandfather in the book, but they don't tell the readers that, but her her story was based on her grandpa, and so I had to put in specific hat he used to wear. And so that is part of why I need to read the manuscript, because the detail, you know, how much detail is going to be on this page. It's going to depend on how long it takes me. So every author is different. And again, it's part of talking about it up front and seeing some authors have scenes already kind of sketched out. They're like, I want it to look like this, or and you know, I will discuss it with them. I'll say, well, you know, sometimes that composition of what they want isn't a really good composition. So, you know, we do discuss that. So
how much do you hate art notes, or do you appreciate some of them? Or
I get it. It just depends on what it is. You know, if it's sometimes, to me, that they'll make changes that just seem irrelevant. You know, I don't quite understand, you know, why sometimes they'll want it a certain way. And sometimes they don't even understand why they want it a certain way. So I don't, it's not that I mind it. It's just, you know, as the illustrator, I have this in my, you know, these scenes in my head, and you know, I think I'm good at composition, and so I have to sometimes suggest, well, you know, I did this color because, you know, it's contrasting against this, or so it's just that we just have to have feedback, and every author's different.
What do your critique partners do or say to help you move your stories forward? Linda?
Hi. I was privileged to be with a critique group in Pewaukee, and actually my little Stella book I brought with me. I brought the manuscript along with me, and it was amazing to hear somebody read your words. That was amazing in and of itself, and then to just give you some really good feedback, which I took. I mean, I think everything that they said I should highlight or do, or you know, it gave me some just different ideas, and I did exactly what they suggested, because their suggestions were so good. I mean, critique groups, if no one has ever done that before, that is absolutely awesome, to just get together with some other writers and illustrators and just talk and read work. It's amazing.
I have something I've thought of. Can I?
Yeah.
Just popped in my head. One of the things that I, as an illustrator, what drives me crazy is when the author will take their story to all their relatives, and now that it's illustrated, and of course it's like too many Indians, you know, that this person thinks it should be this, and then the next person thinks it should be this, and everybody wants to change all the illustrations because every single person has a different opinion. So authors, that is something that will drive your illustrators crazy, is don't take it to the whole village to critique it, because you're going to get a whole village of different responses. So
good point. Jean, do you have? Oh, go ahead.
I want to qualify that a little bit, because Terry is talking about, just for those of you, because I can see that there's some new people in the group. Terry is someone who she's working with a self-published author. So she's getting input from the author. If Terry was working with like Simon and Schuster, or you know, a Random House, and she was illustrating a book for a traditional publisher, the only input she would ever get as an illustrator would be from the art director. So she would not be getting any input at all from the author. So I also saw that someone had put in the chat, they asked about if you had to have an illustrator when you submitted your picture book, if you were just a writer. That would the only reason that you would ever be looking for an illustrator is if you were going to be self-publishing. if you are submitting to traditional publishing houses, or you're getting an agent and your agent submitting, they find an illustrator for you. You do not have a choice in the kind of illustrator that you get when you go traditionally published.
You do have a choice. You
No.
do have a choice. It's just that they prefer you don't.
No, you don't. Not in traditional publishing. They do not ask you who you want to have publish, illustrate your book. They
Right,
tell you
but-
who will be illustrating your book in traditional publishing.
Right, but like I said, I have worked with a traditional publisher, and they still sought me out because they wanted it a certain look, and they did let me work on the book. That was through a traditional publisher.
Right, that was the art director though deciding that?
Yes,
The
it was.
author, the author's not deciding
Well,
that.
no, the author had the input, but they agreed. So
That's
it's
very
not-
unusual.
Yeah, it is. I know. Yeah.
That's very unusual.
Yeah.
That is like once in a million. We can ask someone like Pat Zietlow Miller, who has been several times published, and I think maybe once they asked her opinion on a traditional, on an illustrator. She just never gets in,
Yeah, and I'm
even though
talking
she
about
has.
before the book even got started. They sought me out before any work was done on the art.
Right,
That was through Orange
But-
Hat in Waukesha, so it is a smaller house.
right. And Orange Hat is a hybrid. I'm talking
Uh-huh.
like a traditional publisher, like Random House or something like that. You know, the big five, even smaller publishing houses don't necessarily give you a choice into who's going to be illustrating your book. So you, Terry, as people who self-publish have that, the beauty of being able to work with an illustrator like Terry, which is wonderful that she's accommodating some of their wishes. But a lot of times you have to trust, if you're traditionally publishing, you're trusting the publishing house to pick that illustrator and to create your vision. So does that make sense to everyone? I was just trying to clarify some of that.
Thanks, Deb. Jean, do you have critique partners that you work with, and have they helped you move your stories forward? You're muted. There you go.
For this first book, I didn't have a specific critique group. I had people reading it for me who are writers and so on. But I would just reinforce what Linda said. You know, all the ideas, the good ideas, things that you might have not thought of that you go, oh yeah, that would make a lot of sense, you know, in that part. So I think they're real important to have that feedback.
Really. This one's for Rochelle. I think it's amazing how you flex your writing muscles in so many genres. How do you switch from one genre to the next? Picture books are so different from novels, from poetry.
I find it really refreshing to switch genres. I wrote creative nonfiction for years. I have 11 published books for adults, and I still like it. I feel very comfortable doing it, but I got a little bored with it. And so it helps to kind of switch it up to do picture books or novels. It does help to do a lot of reading in the genre you're writing in, so you're familiar with the various skills and of that craft. You know, so your picture book doesn't sound like a novel, or vice versa.
Okay, I think that's all the questions. Joyce did post a link in there for ways to purchase the books if you're interested.
Andy has a question also.
Oh, sorry. Who does?
Sandy.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yep. Half covered. She says at best there is a chance a traditional editor will ask who are some illustrators whose styler feels right for this work. Any other questions before we wrap up? So now we want to know what's next, what's coming up next for you, Linda?
And I think, well, I started writing that next story, What's in the Bag, Lucille? And we'll see what happens with that. When you're passionate about something, things just kind of flow in a pretty good way. As I said, we'll wait and see what 2024 brings us. I've always got ideas. I also wrote a story about my grandfather, and it starts out with me and my grandfather in this car. I loved my grandfather. And then as I'm growing up, now I'm in the car with my husband. And now I'm in the car with my kids and my husband. And now I'm in the car with my grandkids. And that book is tender and wonderful. And I'm hoping something happens in 2024 with that one too. So you never know. That's the beauty of it. You just don't know.
Right. Jean, what's next for you?
I have a story that I've just sat down at the computer and let the words come. It's about, it's kind of based on my granddaughter who's just turned 5 and my great, let's see, what would he be? My nephew's little boy. And it'll be, the title will be Marley's Masterpiece, and it has to do with Marley, who gets into the paint one day and creates a masterpiece all over the house, and then what their parents do about that. And so it's evolving, but I just got down just the basic ideas. I'm really excited to take that further now this next year.
Great. Terry, what's next for you, or what are you working on now?
I just had a book released here for Christmas. It's called The Little Christmas Tree. That was, again, a self-published, and it's digitally drawn. And then I have a book. I'm really excited. I've been waiting for it. I traditionally did this one. It's about a giraffe that has an adventure in the Serengeti. And her husband's in the service, so they've been in Germany for trying to get back for over a year. And so she's finally back in the United States. And so now she's finally going to get this book published. And it's supposed to, we're supposed to work on a series. She's going to have this giraffe go from country to country, because with her husband, they have gone from country to country with his service. So I'm excited to have that one come out.
Rochelle, what's next for you?
I have written a book proposal for a follow-up to Mightier Than the Sword, and am finishing revisions on a novel. And of course, the never-ending picture books, which I just keep throwing out to agents, hoping that someone will take one. So, work.
And Joyce, I know you mentioned your book that's coming out next year. Anything else that you're working on?
Well, I have a question for you, Nicole.
Yes.
What's next for you? What book are you working on?
Well, I just got a critique from Pat Zietlow Miller. It was amazing, and Justin Colon. And my book is Calico Jack Wants a Snack. I'm working on that one. I'm editing, or not editing, but revising a few other ones too.
Cool. I want to remind everybody that we put out seasonal flyers. And so when you have something that's going to be released, please make sure to reach out to us so that we can get your books in the flyer. And our spring, I know it's snowy outside, but we're working on the spring flyer. We will hopefully have that in your hands so that you can do some Christmas shopping, or Hanukkah shopping, or just birthday shopping, whatever, with books from Wisconsin. We'll have that out for you, we hope, by the second week of December. And I just really want to thank you all for giving of your time and helping us spread the buzz about your books.
And for those that are attending, we will be doing a raffle for the books that were discussed tonight. And I will be contacting you tomorrow with the winners.
Thank you. This is fun.
Thank you.
Thank
It
you very
was.
much, guys. This was great. And
Thank you.
congratulations to everyone in their books. It's
Thank you.
huge.
Fabulous. Wisconsin has some amazing people. Take care, everybody.
Right. Thanks, guys. See you in January.